I've always thought there was nothing more peaceful than an early morning on the water. The fog hovering over the lake like a wool blanket, the distant hum of a loon, the creak of the dock under my boots, that was the kind of quiet that wrapped around your soul and made the rest of the world fade out. That's where I was when everything I thought I knew about my life came undone. Sitting in my aluminum fishing boat, bobbing gently in the stillness, with a warm coffee thermos in one hand and a spinning reel in the other, I was about as content as a man could be. My wife, Amanda, was back at the cabin we'd rented for the weekend, said she was tired and wanted to sleep in. I didn't think anything of it. We'd been married 9 years by then, and fishing had always been my thing, not hers. I figured I'd catch a few largemouth bass, maybe a walleye if I was lucky. The plan was simple: fish till noon, head back to the cabin, fry them up, maybe crack open a beer or two and kick back with Amanda on the porch. It was supposed to be a little getaway, just the two of us. A reset, I guess. Only, it didn't go that way. I remember checking my phone around 10. No missed calls, just one text message from her. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen this way. I'm pregnant. It's not yours." At first, I thought it was a joke. Like maybe she'd hit the wrong words or autocorrect had taken a swing at something. But no, I stared at it, blinking, rereading it over and over as the morning sun burned off the mist. And my stomach dropped like I'd just gone over a waterfall in that rickety boat. I must have sat there for 20 minutes, not moving, just floating in place, the fishing rod limp in my hand. The line had drifted under a dead branch, and I didn't even care. The lake was still and beautiful, but inside me, everything was crashing. She was pregnant. And it wasn't mine. And she told me, by text. I motored back to shore on autopilot. The throttle felt sticky in my grip, or maybe my hands were just shaking. When I pulled up to the dock, the sun was beating down full force, and the cabin door was wide open. Her suitcase was gone. The rental car wasn't in the driveway. Just like that, she was gone. I sat on the porch with that text still glowing on my screen, wondering what the hell I'd missed. I mean, yeah, we'd had our rough patches. We were arguing more lately, mostly about money, my long hours, her feeling unseen, whatever that meant. But cheating? And getting pregnant by someone else? She didn't even have the decency to say who it was. Just dropped a bomb and vanished. I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. I texted back once. "What the hell, Amanda?" No response. By the time noon rolled around, I'd packed up my gear and sat in the truck, staring out at that damn lake like it owed me something. We'd been there 3 days. I'd thought we were reconnecting. We even made love the first night. I remember holding her after and feeling like maybe things were turning around. What a fool I was. I didn't drive straight home. I needed time. I stopped off at a diner about 30 miles down the road. Ordered a burger I couldn't taste. Kept glancing at my phone like it might start vibrating and fix all this. But it didn't. After that, I pulled into a roadside motel and paid cash for a room. I couldn't go back to our house, not yet. Every room there had some piece of her in it, and I couldn't stomach that. Not knowing what I knew now. That night, I lay on the lumpy mattress staring at the popcorn ceiling, just letting the rage crawl through me like fire ants. My wife. My wife had not only cheated but carried someone else's child and decided I wasn't even worth a proper goodbye. I didn't sleep. I just planned. Because if she thought she could do this and walk away clean, she didn't know me at all. By morning, the numbness had worn off, replaced by something colder, something sharper. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was awake. Focused. If Amanda thought I'd lie down and take this, she'd picked the wrong guy to screw over. I got in the truck around 6 a.m., back stiff from the motel bed, jaw tight from a night of grinding my teeth. I drove without music, Just the sound of tires humming over old blacktop and the occasional crow cackling from a power line. I had a plan. Not a complete one yet, but something was forming, slow and steady, like frost creeping up a windowpane. First stop was the cabin rental office, a small building with a wooden sign out front that read, Pine Hollow Retreats. I figured if she was with someone, maybe they'd left together. Maybe there was a name. A license plate. Anything. The girl behind the desk was young, maybe 20, chewing on a pencil and barely looked up when I walked in. "Morning," I said, tipping my cap. I was stayin' in cabin 8 with my wife. Left early, but I think she forgot something. "You got any records on who checked out yesterday?" She blinked. "You said cabin 8? "Yup. Name's Mason Larkin." She typed something into her computer, her purple nails clacking like little beetles. "Looks like, yeah, Amanda Larkin checked out at 10:12 a.m. yesterday." "Did she leave alone?" The girl hesitated, eyeing me like she knew this was more than just a forgotten toothbrush. I think there was a guy with her. They got into a gray Dodge Charger. Out-of-state plates. I didn't catch the number, but he looked kinda," she paused, trying to find the right word, "slimy, I guess." That tracked. I'd met enough low-rent types in my life to know Amanda had a soft spot for flashy losers. I nodded. "Thanks." Before I left, I slipped her a 20 and said, "If you remember anything else, you let me know." "Appreciate it." Back in the truck, I sat with that information for a minute. Gray Dodge Charger. Out-of-state plates. Probably a rental. Probably someone she'd been seeing behind my back for a while. The kind of guy who thinks loud exhaust pipes and hotel sex make him a rebel. I knew I needed more. Amanda hadn't told me his name, but if I could figure out who he was, maybe I could start to understand why she threw everything away. Or maybe I didn't need to understand. Maybe I just needed to return the favor. I drove the 4 hours back home, stopping only for gas and caffeine. When I pulled into our driveway, the place looked the same, white siding, trimmed bushes, wind chimes on the porch, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like someone else's life I'd stumbled into. Her car wasn't there, of course. The garage was half empty, like a pulled tooth. But her flower pots were still out front, wilting. The front door creaked when I pushed it open, and that familiar smell hit me, her shampoo, candles, and some faint trace of cinnamon from the last pie she'd baked. I went room by room, like I was walking through a museum of betrayal. Our wedding photo on the mantel. Her scarf on the banister. A forgotten earring on the nightstand. And then I found her laptop. Now, I ain't much of a tech guy. I fix engines, not computers. But desperation makes a man resourceful. I opened her laptop, guessing her password was the same as her phone PIN, 0723. Our anniversary. Worked on the first try. The inbox was right there. Top message. Subject, "When can I see you again?" From brad.campbell77@gmail.com. I clicked it. My heart didn't even race anymore. It just burned. Last weekend was amazing. I keep thinking about you in that cabin. I don't care what you decide about Mason. I want you and the baby. I'm ready. Just say the word and I'll move in with you full-time. Full-time. So she'd been part-time with him for a while now. Long enough to screw around, get knocked up, and make plans to replace me. My fingers hovered over the keys. I could reply. I could send him something vile. But no. Not yet. I needed to think bigger. I clicked into her sent folder. More emails. Pictures. Her in the mirror, in our bathroom, wearing nothing but my flannel shirt. Her in the cabin, grinning at him with that same damn smile she used to give me. Him too, balding, goateed, flexing in the mirror like he was some kind of prizefighter. Brad Campbell. I opened a new tab and typed his name into Facebook. Boom. There he was. Mutual friends, 0. Job, salesman at JNR Auto Mart. Lived 2 towns over. Divorced, 1 kid. Posted a picture of Amanda and him together at a bar 2 months ago. I hadn't even noticed. She told me it was a girls' night. That night I couldn't sleep. She was in his bed. I could have driven over there right then. Could have smashed his headlights in, knocked his teeth out, showed Amanda what it meant to humiliate a man who gave her everything. But I didn't. Because that would have been the easy way. And Amanda didn't deserve easy. I didn't eat for 2 days. Just sat in that house, chewing on the sour taste of betrayal, watching the dust float through shafts of morning light, feeling like a ghost in my own home. Everything reminded me of her. The damn couch where we used to curl up on cold nights. The fridge door she covered in photos, our trip to Nashville, that goofy Halloween where I dressed as a scarecrow. All lies now. Just props in a bad play. On the 3rd day, I finally ate a cold sandwich, took a hot shower, and made a decision. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to smash things or beg for answers. I was going to make them both feel what I felt. Slow. Searing. Deep down where no ice pack or apology could ever reach. And I knew exactly where to start. First thing I did was clean myself up. Shaved the beard. Trimmed the hair. Put on a crisp flannel and my good boots, the ones I wore to job interviews and funerals. I looked like a man who had nothing to hide, which was exactly what I needed folks to believe. Next, I drove out to JNR Auto Mart, where our good pal Brad Campbell worked. The place was one of those used car lots with balloons flapping off antennas and a plastic gorilla on the roof wearing sunglasses. I parked across the street at a gas station and watched for a while. Took mental notes. Brad showed up late, around 10:15 a.m. in that same gray Dodge Charger. Still flashy. Still pathetic. He wore aviators, a tight polo shirt, and had that walk some men develop when they mistake confidence for sleaze. He shook hands with customers like they were poker chips, laughing way too hard, slapping backs like he'd known them forever. A charmer. A salesman. The kind of guy who knows how to smile while screwing your wife. I didn't approach him that day. That would have been too obvious. I waited until Saturday morning. Wore my oldest jacket, the one with the stain on the sleeve, and pulled a ball cap down low. I walked in around 9 a.m., pretending to be a customer. "Looking for a truck," I said to the lady at the front desk. "Something used. Not too beat up." She pointed me toward Brad with a polite smile. "He's our best. He'll take care of you." I bet he would. Brad didn't recognize me. Why would he? I was just another face, just another mark. He stood there like a peacock, teeth bright, voice slick. "I got the perfect truck for you, my man. Step this way." He led me to a 2015 Ford F-150 with 90,000 miles and a weak transmission. I played dumb, let him spin his little story, nodded at all the right moments. He even tried to sell me on a payment plan. "You married?" he asked, smirking. "Gotta think about the missus too, right?" I looked him square in the eyes, and for a split second, I wanted to crack him right across the mouth. Instead, I smiled. "Yeah. She's got real particular tastes." After half an hour of small talk and vehicle nonsense, I said I'd think about it and left. That was enough for now. I had the vibe, the routine. He was predictable, overconfident and dumb as a sack of broken wrenches. I figured if Amanda really was serious about being with him, she'd move in with him soon. That gave me a small window to prepare. And I started making calls. First was to my buddy Trent, who ran security for a private investigations firm over in Evansville. We'd gone fishing together for years. I helped him build a deck behind his house once, and he owed me a favor. I need to know everything about this guy, I told him. Brad Campbell. Used car salesman. Lives near Gorman Creek. Cheats with married women. And apparently knocks em up. Trent didn't ask questions. Just said, give me 2 days. While I waited, I went back to Amanda's laptop and copied every email. Every picture. Every dirty message they sent each other. I didn't want them for proof or court. I wanted them for leverage. See, revenge isn't about screaming in someone's face. It's about putting your hand on their shoulder, smiling sweetly, and letting them realize, on their own, that the floor beneath them is slowly giving way. 2 days later, Trent called me back. Your boy Brad, he said. You're not gonna believe this. He's got a record. Fraud charges back in 2012. Did time in a low-security facility. Got out early. Moved here. Changed jobs like 10 times. And the best part? He's got a custody hearing coming up with his ex-wife. She wants full custody of their daughter. I sat there, the pieces clicking into place like a puzzle I hadn't even realized I was building. You sure about that? I asked. Court dates in 2 weeks. County courthouse. Thursday morning. I thanked him, hung up, and poured myself a drink. I had my hook. Now I just needed to bait it. I spent the next week smiling at strangers and pretending like my life wasn't smoldering behind my eyes. Amanda hadn't texted since her little bombshell, I'm pregnant, but not by you. I'm sorry. That was the last I heard from her. Not even a follow-up call. No apology worth the air it traveled through. Just silence, like she'd dropped the mic and vanished off stage. It suited me just fine. I needed her quiet. I needed time. And I needed to make sure Brad had no idea he was being stalked by the very man he'd cuckolded. Every morning, I watched. I followed him on foot sometimes from the truck, always from a distance. He'd pick Amanda up around 7 some evenings, and they'd drive to the cheap part of town, the kind of places with plastic curtains and half-lit motel signs. It was always the same. Sneak in. Stay for 2 or 3 hours. Then drop her off a block away from wherever she was sleeping now. I figured she wasn't at her sister's like she told folks. Probably staying with one of her girlfriends who didn't know, or didn't care, what was going on. Or maybe she was already living with him. Either way, I knew enough. Now, I wasn't some kind of genius. I was just a man with patience. And if I'd learned one thing from fishing, it's this: you don't yank the line too early. You wait till the hook sets deep. The custody hearing was set for Thursday. That gave me 5 days. Plenty of time to make some moves. First, I printed out all the emails and messages Amanda and Brad had exchanged. Dozens of them. Screenshots. Pictures. Everything. Then I boxed them up, nice and neat, and mailed them to Brad's ex-wife. She lived just 2 towns over. Her address was on a few of his online profiles, buried in the comments. One Google search was all it took. I didn't include a letter. I didn't need to. The truth spoke for itself. Next, I paid a visit to the Department of Family Services and asked for some anonymous guidance on how a man's parental rights might be affected if he was knowingly involved in an affair with a married woman, had a criminal record, and possibly got that woman pregnant. The lady behind the desk raised her eyebrows halfway to heaven and said, well, depending on the judge, that might be real relevant. That was good enough for me. By Wednesday, the day before the hearing, Brad's Facebook started changing. Fast. His profile picture disappeared. His relationship status vanished. Half the public posts were gone. That told me all I needed to know. Amanda must have found out. Or maybe Brad figured it out himself, maybe he knew someone had been watching. Or maybe his ex-wife called and gave him a verbal beating. Either way, I knew what I had done had landed. But I wasn't finished. Thursday morning, I drove out to the courthouse. I didn't go inside. Just sat across the street, sipping burnt diner coffee and watching folks file in. Around 9:03, Brad pulled up. He looked like hell. Slumped shoulders. No jacket. Tie askew. Amanda wasn't with him. I grinned into my cup. I waited for him to go inside, then pulled out my burner phone. I'd bought it 2 days ago. Paid in cash. Nothing fancy. Just enough for one call and one message. I dialed Amanda's number. She picked up after 2 rings. Mason? Her voice was hesitant. Thin. No, I said. It's not Mason. It's Karma. And she says congratulations on ruining your life. I hung up before she could say a word. Then I tossed the phone into the dumpster behind the diner. Now, I know what you're thinking. That ain't real revenge, right? That's just poking the bear and watching it flinch. But I wasn't done yet. Because revenge isn't a firework, it's a fuse. And the final part of mine? That was personal. That evening, I stopped by Amanda's old place. The one we used to share. She hadn't officially moved out, which meant she hadn't asked for her things yet. Probably assumed I'd pack it all up like a good little ex-husband and drop it off on her lover's porch. Not a chance. I took everything she left behind, her clothes, her perfume bottles, even the stupid dream journal she kept under her side of the bed, and drove it all out to the clearing near the lake where we first went fishing as a couple. I built a fire. A good one. Hot. Steady. Then I sat back in a lawn chair, cracked open a beer, and watched her world go up in smoke. Piece by piece. Dress by dress. Page by page. I kept one thing, though. That framed photo of us from our wedding. Not because I loved it, and not because I missed her. Because I wanted to remember. Not her. Not what we had. But what happens when you give your heart to someone who never deserved it in the first place? It had been a week since I watched her silk dresses and love letters curl to ash beside the lake. And I hadn't heard a peep. No calls. No messages. No showdowns in the driveway. Brad had gone dark on social media. Amanda had disappeared from everything. It was like they'd both fallen off the map, and part of me thought maybe that was enough. Maybe the storm I stirred up was already doing its work. But closure ain't just silence. It's looking someone dead in the eye and knowing they finally get it. So I decided it was time for a visit. I drove to Brad's neighborhood just after sundown. He lived in one of those slapped-together suburbs with vinyl siding, cracked sidewalks, and American flags bleached half-white by the sun. His house was near the end of the cul-de-sac, tucked behind a few oak trees and a rusted trampoline. Amanda's car was out front. Her old blue Ford, the one I used to change the oil in, polish on Sundays, treat better than she ever treated me. I parked 2 streets over and walked the rest of the way. Brought a bag with me, nothing wild, just some of her old letters, a printed ultrasound photo she'd left on the shared cloud, and a small note I'd scribbled that morning. I wasn't going to threaten her. I was going to tell the truth. She just hadn't heard it out loud yet. I knocked once. Light came on behind the curtain. Brad opened the door wearing a white tank top, gym shorts, and a face like a kicked dog. "Hey, pal," I said, smiling real calm. "We need to talk." He didn't say anything, just stepped back and let me in. I walked into the living room where Amanda was curled up on the couch, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her hair was matted. Face pale. eyes wide when she saw me. "Mason," she whispered. "What?" I tossed the bag on the coffee table. "That's everything I didn't burn. Thought maybe you'd want to keep a little piece of the life you threw away." Brad sat down in the recliner like he was hoping to blend in with the furniture. Amanda reached for the bag, but I stopped her with a look. "I'm not here to fight," I said. "I'm not here to yell or beg or try to fix anything. I just came to tell you the part you never got to hear." She swallowed hard. "What part?" I looked straight at her. "The part where I stopped being the fool." I walked around their little living room, letting my eyes trace the walls. A baby calendar was pinned up beside the TV. Due date scribbled in red marker. November 3rd. The same day we'd met 5 years ago at a state fair in Tennessee. Fitting. "You know," I said, "I loved you, Amanda. Not the fairy tale kind. The real kind. The kind where you don't walk away when things get hard. The kind where you show up, even when it's easier to lie." She lowered her eyes. I kept going. "I could have ruined you. I had proof, names, timelines. Could have dragged you both through court, slapped a lawsuit on your idiot boss, maybe even made your family watch the highlight reel. But I didn't. You know why?" Neither of them answered. "Because I don't need to hurt you to win. I just needed to make sure you'd never forget me. Not as some bitter ex, not as the guy you cheated on, but as the man who watched you burn your own life down with both hands, and walked away smiling." Amanda looked like she might cry. Brad looked like he already had. I turned to go, then paused at the door. "Oh, and by the way," I added, "I talked to your old boss, Amanda." "The school board?" Turns out they take a dim view of a guidance counselor getting pregnant by a known felon with an open custody battle. Might want to start job hunting. I didn't look back. Just closed the door behind me. On the drive home, I didn't feel joy. Didn't feel triumph. Just stillness. I stopped by the lake again that night. Stood at the same clearing, beer in hand, letting the wind slap against my face. The stars were out, bold and sharp. I listened to the water lap the shore, same rhythm it had always had. But something in me had changed. I wasn't the same man who left for that fishing trip. Wasn't the same man who stared at that stupid text and crumbled. I'd found something in the wreckage. Not peace exactly. But clarity. They say betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from someone you trust. But I think it's what you do afterward that defines who you really are. Me? I didn't get revenge with a fist or a gun. I got it with patience. With truth. With fire and silence and one last, cold goodbye. I didn't hear from Amanda after I left their house that night. No text. No call. Nothing. But silence can say more than words. And the quiet that followed felt heavier than all her lies combined. I went back to the routine, mowing lawns, fixing up old tools, stopping by the diner for breakfast like nothing had happened. Folks around town noticed I was different, though. One of the regulars, old Jimmy, patted my shoulder the other morning and said, "Storm's past, huh?" I just smiled and nodded. He didn't need to know that some storms never pass. You just learn how to walk in the rain. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just my name in her handwriting. Inside was a folded note and an old photo of us at the county fair, me holding up a giant stuffed bear I'd won her, both of us grinning like fools. The note was short. "Mason. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know. I remember who we were. I'm sorry I broke it. I'm scared. Amanda." No mention of the baby. No mention of Brad. Just a crack in the wall she'd built. And maybe that was the part that hurt the most. I almost threw it away. Almost lit it up with the rest. But I kept it. Put it in the top drawer with my war medals and Grandpa's old pocket knife. Not because I still loved her, at least, not in the way I used to, but because I needed to remember. Not just what she did, but who I was before all this. Who I became after. A few days later, something strange happened. A detective showed up at my door. He was tall, had sun-leathered skin and a badge clipped to his belt like it was dragging him down. Said his name was DeWitt. You Mason Carter? Depends who's asking. He smirked, like he'd heard that 1,000 times. We're looking into a domestic disturbance report filed by a neighbor on Larchmont Drive. That's where your ex-wife's staying. Know anything about it? My stomach tightened. Larchmont. Brad Street. I shook my head. Haven't been there in days. Well, he said, flipping through his notepad, witness said there was shouting. Some threats. Something about a pregnancy, and, possibly an altercation involving a wooden chair. I blinked. What happened? He paused. Mr. Harrison was taken to the hospital. Head injury. Said he fell. But the story doesn't line up. I leaned on the doorframe. And Amanda? She's fine. Said it was a mistake. But between you and me, he said, lowering his voice, something's off about the whole thing. He handed me his card. If you remember anything, or if she reaches out, call me. That night, I sat on the porch, staring out across the empty road. I couldn't stop thinking about the way Amanda looked the last time I saw her. The way her hands trembled near that baby calendar. The fear in her eyes, not fear of me, but of whatever mess she'd landed herself in. Brad always seemed like a punk. But the kind who punches walls, not people. Still, I'd seen what bitterness and desperation could do to a man. Maybe this wasn't over. Maybe Amanda was in deeper than even she realized. The next morning, I got a text. First one in weeks. Amanda, I didn't mean for any of this. Please. Can we talk? Just you and me. No location. No time. Just that. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. Me, name the place. A few minutes later, it buzzed again. Amanda, the lake. Sunset. I don't know what I expected walking down that dirt path again, the one where I burned her memories and buried what we were. She was already there, sitting on a stump near the edge of the water. Same blue dress she wore the day we got engaged. I thought you hated this place, I said. She turned, eyes red and swollen. I used to. But now, it feels like the only place I was ever honest. I didn't speak. Just waited. She stood up, wringing her hands. Brad, he lost it. After you came over. Started accusing me of things I didn't even do. Said I ruined his life. I nodded slowly. Sounds familiar. She winced. I told him I didn't want to raise the baby with him. That I'd go it alone. And? Her voice cracked. That's when he hit me. I clenched my jaw. Hard. I didn't report it. I couldn't. But the neighbor heard us yelling and called it in. I stepped closer. And now you want me to what? Help? Rescue you? No, she said, tears falling. I don't deserve that. I just wanted you to hear it from me. I wanted you to know. I finally get it. I stared at her for a long time. The wind picked up, pushing ripples across the lake. You think I came here to forgive you? She shook her head. No. I came here to forgive myself. I left her there, by the water. Didn't look back. Didn't make promises. Didn't offer comfort. But deep down, something shifted. Not out of love. Not even out of mercy. But because the fire that started this whole mess. It didn't burn me alive. It forged something new. And I wasn't done yet. Because as much as she might have unraveled my past, there was still my future to reckon with. And I'd be damned if I let it get written without me holding the pen. I wish I could say that was the end of it, me walking away, her crying by the lake, and the sun setting behind us like something out of a storybook. But real life doesn't tie things up that neat. Not when betrayal runs that deep. Amanda stayed quiet for a few days after our talk. I figured maybe she finally understood. Maybe she'd take some time to face what she'd done. Maybe she'd raise that child and leave me out of it, like she promised. But trouble has a way of circling back around, especially when folks like Brad are involved. It was late one evening when I got another visit. This time not from Detective DeWitt. This time it was Amanda's father. Yep. The same man who'd once beaten me bloody based on a lie. Now he was standing on my porch with his hat in his hands and shame in his eyes. "Mason," he said. "Can we talk?" I should have slammed the door in his face. Should have told him to go to hell. But instead, I stepped aside. "Say what you came to say." He sat down stiffly at my kitchen table, like the guilt weighed more than his bones could handle. "She told me the truth," he said, not meeting my eyes. "About everything. Brad. The cheating. The baby. You." I waited. He swallowed hard. "I believed her lies. I hit you. I accused you of stepping out on her, when all you ever did was try to hold her together. And for that, I'm sorry." He slid a folded envelope across the table. "What's this?" He looked up. "Money. Enough to cover what she took from you. From your business. From your name. I didn't touch it. I don't want your money." He nodded slowly. "I figured you'd say that. But I had to try." I studied him for a long moment. "Why now?" His shoulders slumped. "Because Brad's missing." That got my attention. "What do you mean missing?" "Left his place 3 nights ago. Never came back. Car's still there. Wallet, phone, everything untouched." I stared at the old man across from me. "You think Amanda had something to do with it?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I think she's scared. I think she's been unraveling ever since you left her. And I think maybe Brad wasn't the first one to push her too far." The next morning, I took a drive out to Larchmont. His place was taped up, crime scene markings, yellow plastic, and a patrol car sitting quiet at the curb. I didn't stop. Didn't ask questions. Instead, I went straight to the lake. Same old stump. Same old silence. And Amanda was there again, just like before. But this time she looked different. Her hair was tied back tight. Her face clean. No makeup. No games. Just her and the truth. "You heard?" she asked. "I heard," I said. "You want to tell me what happened?" She didn't answer at first. Just stared at the water. Then, finally, he said he'd take the baby. Said I wasn't fit to be a mother. That he'd prove it. Take me to court. Use my past against me. I clenched my fists. And he grabbed me, she whispered. Said no one would believe me over him. Said I was nothing. Her eyes drifted back to mine. "I didn't kill him, Mason," she said. "But I didn't stop him from falling either." My throat went dry. Falling? Off the bluff. Behind his house. He stumbled when he tried to hit me again. I stepped closer. "Did you call for help?" "No," she said, her voice flat. I stood there and watched him roll down. I think he hit his head. There was blood. But I left. Jesus. We stood there in silence for what felt like forever. Finally, I asked, "Why are you telling me all this?" "Because I needed someone to know," she said. "And I couldn't live with the guilt if the only person who knew me, truly knew me, never heard the truth." I looked at her, standing there in the wind with all her pain laid bare. "I'm not your savior, Amanda," I said. "I know," she whispered. "But you're the only one who ever loved me." That night, I found myself holding that photo again, the one from the fair. I finally tore it in half. Put her side in the trash and kept mine. Not out of anger, but because her story wasn't mine anymore. And the next morning, I called Detective DeWitt. "Yeah," I said into the phone. "I think I know where you can start looking." Detective DeWitt showed up 2 hours after the call. Didn't ask many questions over the phone, just told me to meet her by the overlook behind Brad's place. That cliff Amanda mentioned. The one with blood in its roots. I got there before her. Walked the edge. Looked down into that ravine. A long drop, maybe 50 feet, brambles and stone at the bottom, a broken fence off to the left like someone had smashed straight through it. No body in sight. Just wind, dead leaves, and silence. "You were right," DeWitt said as she pulled up beside me. She stepped out in plain clothes, not her usual badge-on-the-hip look. Today she was just a woman tired of chasing ghosts. "We found blood. And a trail. But the body's gone." "Gone?" I asked. She nodded. "Washed into the creek maybe. Dragged off by animals. Or, moved." We both stared down into the ravine again. "Moved by Amanda?" I asked. "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe someone else. Someone trying to protect her. Or make her look even worse." She gave me a long look. "Would that someone be you?" I shook my head. "I didn't even know until yesterday." DeWitt exhaled and crossed her arms. "You sure know how to pick, Mason." "Yeah," I said. "That seems to be the running theme." Later that night, I drove past the old cabin Amanda used to sneak off to when things got too real. The one by the pine stretch off Route 32. We used to go there together, before her lies tangled everything up. The lights were on. I parked in the tree line and walked up slow. Something in my gut told me not to knock. I looked through the window. And there she was. Amanda. Cradling her belly, sitting in the dim glow of a lamp. Rocking slowly, like she was already trying to calm a baby that hadn't been born yet. She looked peaceful. Too peaceful. I didn't go in. Didn't say a word. I just watched her for a few minutes, then turned back into the dark. And as I walked back to my truck, I realized something that shook me more than any of her betrayals ever had. I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't love her either. I just felt tired. The next morning, Amanda was gone again. Left the cabin sometime before dawn. No note. No call. Detective DeWitt left me a voicemail around noon. Brad's car was found burned out behind a hardware store in Pine County. Still no body. We're bringing Amanda in for questioning. I didn't call back. There wasn't anything left to say. That night, I stood in my backyard watching the stars and thinking about everything I'd lost, my wife, my business, my peace. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I had to fix it. Some things don't get fixed. They just get buried. And sometimes the only way forward is to leave the shovel behind. I didn't hear from Amanda for 6 days. 6 days of unanswered calls, quiet mornings, and the constant hum of questions in the back of my skull. I tried to move on, tried to keep my hands busy, fixing the broken porch railing, oiling my old tackle box, cleaning the gutters, but every nail I hammered down just echoed her name. Then one morning, I opened the mailbox and found a manila envelope addressed in her handwriting. No return address. No stamps. It had been placed there, deliberately, like a final offering. Inside, one ultrasound photo, one folded piece of paper, and a Polaroid of her standing in front of a gray, metal door with graffiti splashed across it. She was smiling. Alone. The letter was short. Mason. I didn't know how to tell you, so I didn't. I know you won't believe this, but I never meant for any of this to happen. I never meant to love someone else. I never meant to ruin you. I never meant to carry his child. I'm leaving for good. This baby deserves a clean start. Don't come looking. I'm sorry you found out the way you did. Amanda. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time staring at that Polaroid. Not because of her smile, or the way her hand rested on the curve of her stomach, but because of the number spray painted on the door behind her. Number 7. It was the same number carved into the side of Brad's lucky fishing boat. The same number Amanda used as the passcode for her old voicemail. The same number she once whispered in her sleep while I laid beside her pretending not to hear. 7. I took the picture to DeWitt. She examined it under her office lamp, then frowned. You know where this is? I think so, I said. An old warehouse on Shale Avenue. It used to be part of the bait supply chain. Brad did some business out there. I went with him once. DeWitt nodded and grabbed her coat. Let's go. The warehouse was silent when we arrived. Midday sun beat down through cracked skylights, turning dust into slow-moving clouds. It smelled like rust and mold, and something faintly sour, like rotting wood and dead secrets. We found the door from the photo. DeWitt went in first, hand on her sidearm. I followed. Inside, there was nothing but an empty cot, a baby blanket still in its wrapper, and a used coffee mug on a paint-peeled table. The air felt hollow. Like someone had just left minutes before. Amanda was gone again. But she'd been here. Recently. I picked up the mug. Still warm. DeWitt scanned the corners of the room, her lips pressed tight. She's running. But from what? I didn't have an answer. On the drive back, DeWitt finally said what had been weighing on us both. You think she killed him? I didn't answer right away. I watched the trees flash past the window and thought about that first day on the fishing trip, when I was still whole, when Amanda was just my wife and not a storm I couldn't escape. I think she wanted to, I said quietly. And I think maybe, someone helped her. DeWitt gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. You? She asked. I looked out at the road and shook my head. No. But maybe someone who wanted her more than I did. That night, I took the ultrasound and the photo and burned them in the fire pit out back. I didn't do it out of anger, more like shedding skin. That baby wasn't mine. That life wasn't mine. That woman, never really was. Ash drifted into the wind like the last of my old hopes floating off into the night sky. I sat there until the coals turned cold, and then I went inside. For the first time since this all began, I slept. No dreams. No Amanda. Just silence. 2 weeks passed. In those 14 days, DeWitt followed up on the warehouse, but Amanda never returned. No surveillance. No phone pings. No more letters. Just silence, like she'd folded herself into the fog and disappeared beyond the edge of the map. But then came the body. A fisherman found it snagged in the reeds downstream from where Brad's boat had been docked, what was left of him, anyway. Face bloated beyond recognition, skin pale and chewed. ID'd by dental records. Clothes matched what he wore the day he left for that so-called solo trip. But here's the kicker, the autopsy revealed he'd been dead long before he ever hit the water. Gunshot. One to the chest. One to the head. Execution style. DeWitt called me into her office the day the results came in. She lit a cigarette, even though we both knew that wasn't allowed indoors anymore. Something in her had aged 10 years since we first stepped into this mess. They found traces of blood in the warehouse, she said. His blood. Cleaned up after, but not good enough. And Amanda? I asked. No sign. I waited, knowing there was more. DeWitt opened a folder and slid it across the desk to me. Inside was a photograph, blurry, taken by a security camera at a gas station outside of Boise, Idaho. Amanda. Wearing a dark hoodie. Holding a baby. Alone. That was 4 days ago, DeWitt said. She used a fake name to buy formula and gas. Paid cash. If she's running, she's good at it. I closed the folder slowly. So that's it? DeWitt leaned back. You could press charges. Aiding in a murder, obstruction, fraud, hell, even child abandonment, depending on how you frame it. But I just shook my head. No, I said. I think she already gave me the punishment. I sold the house a month later. Didn't need all that space. Too many memories in the walls. I bought a small trailer near Crooked Pines and parked it beside a stretch of water where the fish still bit and no one asked questions. I fixed up my old boat. Gave it a fresh coat of paint and renamed it, Clean Cut. Felt fitting. Each morning, I'd cast a line out and think about everything that had happened, not in a bitter way, but in the quiet space that comes after a storm. The way you listen to the stillness and start to believe in the sound of healing. Sometimes I wondered if Amanda ever told that baby about me. If she ever whispered my name when no one was around. If she remembered how I held her the night before she left, when she was already someone else pretending to still be mine. I don't hate her. That's the strange part. She broke me, sure. Lied to me. Killed a man. Ran with his child. Left me with a heart like torn netting. But somehow, underneath all of it, I think a part of her loved me, maybe not enough to stay, but enough to regret walking away. One foggy morning in early fall, I stood by the water with a hot cup of coffee and watched a heron glide low over the lake. In that moment, I finally realized something. I survived. I didn't get the revenge I once dreamed of. I didn't get justice in the way the world defines it. But I found peace. In a world full of betrayal, sometimes peace is the greatest act of rebellion. And that, I reckon, is enough.